Nothing sets people apart so much as excessive cruelty. A thirst for blood and sadism, not even found in the animal world, sometimes capture the minds of people. In such moments, you involuntarily wonder, is there anything human in the killer at all? Let's figure it out together. Often strong people are calm by nature and do not seek conflict, but it is not always so. Today's story is about a person, power, and cruelty, as well as about the bloody consequences of this frightening union. In Michigan, there is a small town called Traverse City with a population of about 15,000 people. It is famous for picturesque Lake Michigan, on the shores of which there are several resorts. In summer, many tourists come here attracted by festivals and water sports. They come to swim, ride boats, eat delicious local food, and enjoy the unique landscapes around Lake Michigan and Huron. In winter, it is snowy and quiet here, few tourists, and life flows very measuredly. It was in such a place that 18-year-old Kaylee Bruce lived and worked. The girl was always cheerful and bright. In addition, very smart, attractive, and purposeful. By the late 1990s, she was thinking about receiving higher education. Thanks to her academic success in school, she was admitted without problems to Northwestern Michigan College, which was located in Traverse City. To support herself away from her parents, the student worked in the evenings as an administrator at the reception desk in a local beach condominium. The company rented out apartments, rooms, and houses, including for visitors. The condominium was located right on the shore of the lake and was very popular in season. On the evening of Monday, February 16, 1998, Kaylee worked at the registration desk from 5 o'clock to 8 p.m. In February, there were practically no tourists, only a few local residents. Therefore, she was almost alone in the building. The day before, talking with a friend, she shared that she was looking forward to the season starting so that there would be more guests and her salary would increase. On that day, a little more than an hour remained until closing. The girl had to do light cleaning, put everything into the utility room, and then go home. At that time, she lived with her friend Kim, who also worked in this condominium. That evening, Kim was not on shift, but was driving past around 7:30 p.m. after dropping off her friends from a restaurant. When the girl drove by, she looked toward the office and through the window saw the light in the reception area and Kaylee, who was beginning to pack up. Kim wanted to quickly drop off her friends and then stop by for Kaylee. However, when she was returning, more than 40 minutes had passed. Driving past the resort again, Kim saw that the lights inside were off and Kaylee was nowhere to be seen. Kim decided she was late and her friend had already gone home. But just in case, she approached the door to check. Through the glass, she saw no one, so the girl, convinced her friend had left, turned around and went home. The next morning, Tuesday, February 17, 1998, around 7 a.m., the first to arrive at the hotel office was a climate equipment technician named Zachary Meaden. The young man immediately noticed that the door was unlocked. This did not alarm him. He calmly entered inside and called out Kaylee's name. There was no answer. He did not see anyone at the reception desk. Kaylee should have already been preparing for the working day. She never came late and usually arrived early, but not today. The lights were still off everywhere. The technician walked through the floor and noticed a glimmer through the gap of the utility room door. Zachary decided to go down and look. Approaching closer, he saw suspicious red smears near the threshold. In the dark, it was not clear what it was, but when he opened the door, he understood everything. Zachary, horrified, ran out of the utility room and immediately called 911. When police arrived at the scene, Zachary could barely talk. He looked emotionally traumatized and was hardly holding back tears as he described the situation. The sight in the utility room became the most terrifying crime scene in the career of the local law enforcement. In the small room, cleaning appliances and inventory were stored. Absolutely all surfaces, including walls and even the ceiling, were covered in blood. In the middle of the small room lay the body of a girl, so mutilated that she was identified only by the badge on her chest. The victim was 18-year-old employee Kaylee Bruce. Next to her body lay 3 irons, All of them had been smashed. The plastic and metal pieces were covered in dried blood and even fragments of scalp and hair. The victim was without clothes. One of the iron cords was tightly wrapped around her neck, so tightly it cut into the skin and crushed her larynx. According to the coroner's report, the victim had 19 lacerations, so deep that flesh was cut to the bone. The skull was shattered by numerous blows. There were fractures of the cranial vault and facial bones. Severe injuries to the neck and throat corresponded to strangulation. Kaylee was beaten for a long time with blunt objects on the body, abdomen, chest, and pelvis, which caused massive internal bleeding. The most horrifying fact was a metal rod inserted with great force into the victim's genital area, damaging tissues to the pelvic bone and penetrating several centimeters into it. Despite this, there were no signs of rape. The coroner believed that when this injury was inflicted, the girl was still alive for some time until she bled to death. Her death was very painful. The entire small utility room was covered in Kaylee's blood. It was smeared on her body as if by hands. Despite the tiny space, forensic experts spent 6.5 hours collecting dozens of small pieces of evidence. It was obvious Kaylee desperately resisted. They found numerous defensive injuries. The disorder around testified to a fierce struggle. Apparently, her resistance only enraged the attacker. On her body and head, investigators even found shoe prints. Similar prints covered the floor. During the crime, the attacker jumped on the student. However, the first hours after the crime gave no understanding of who could have committed it. The girl was friendly, had no enemies, and no connections with criminals. There were no signs of robbery either. Her bag with money, keys, and jewelry lay intact. The investigation began by interviewing Kaylee's friends, acquaintances, and classmates. Everyone spoke of her in the best way. The police received no information that could explain such cruelty. Soon, suspicion fell on her former boyfriend. Kaylee had dated a classmate for a short time. Their relationship ended peacefully, but investigators considered the version of a crime of jealousy. The young man was questioned, and his alibi verified. It turned out on the evening of February 16th he was at his parents' home, where relatives confirmed his presence. His shoes and clothing did not match the evidence at the scene. Thus, suspicion was lifted. For some time, the investigation was at a dead end. Experts compared the shoe prints and fingerprints found at the scene with the database, but there was no match. Police officers checked dozens of residents and employees of the condominium, but none of them fit. But then a break came in the case. One of the workers recalled that at the condominium there was an employee who behaved strangely. He often asked unnecessary questions, persistently showed interest in Kaylee, and once even asked for a copy of the master key under the pretext of safety. The man's name was Kevin Holzer. He worked in maintenance and technical services. Co-workers described him as unsociable, gloomy, and sometimes aggressive. Holzer was obsessed with Kaylee, often trying to talk to her and even joked about how he wouldn't mind locking her in a room. At first, no one took his words seriously, but after Kaylee's death, suspicions immediately arose. Police checked his apartment and found traces of blood on his work boots. DNA testing confirmed it matched the victim. Kevin Holzer was arrested and interrogated. He denied everything, claiming he was not at the condominium that evening. But video surveillance from the street showed his car near the building. Later, witnesses testified they saw him around 7 p.m. under the pressure of evidence. Holzer eventually confessed partially. He admitted he was in the building, but insisted someone else committed the murder. However, forensic evidence and witness testimony refuted his words. The case went to court. The prosecutor's office presented overwhelming evidence. DNA traces of the victim on Holzer's boots. Shoe prints that matched exactly with his footwear. Witness testimonies that placed him at the scene. His obsessive behavior toward Kaylee. During the trial, the jury listened to shocking details of the crime. The defense attempted to present Holzer as mentally unstable and claimed he was not aware of his actions. However, psychiatric evaluation concluded he was sane and fully aware of his deeds. The brutality of the murder shocked the entire city. Residents of Traverse City, who had always considered their home safe and quiet, were horrified to learn such a thing could happen here. After weeks of hearings, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict: guilty of premeditated murder. Holzer was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. In his last statement, he said nothing about regret or guilt. He simply sat in silence, occasionally smiling. This once again showed how deep his detachment from reality was and how monstrous his cruelty had been. The death of 18-year-old Kaylee Bruce left a deep scar in Traverse City. Her family and friends could not come to terms with the loss for a long time. At Northwestern Michigan College, students organized memorial evenings in her honor. Later, a scholarship in her name was established for talented and hardworking students. Kaylee's classmates and teachers remembered her as a bright, cheerful girl, full of plans for the future. She wanted to build a career, travel, and help people. All those dreams were cut short on a winter evening in 1998. For many residents of Traverse City, life was divided into before and after this tragedy. It became a grim reminder that evil can hide under the guise of an ordinary neighbor or colleague, and that sometimes, even in the most peaceful places, terrible crimes happen.